Hi there, my name's John. I'm a Learning Technology Advisor here in the Celt Department at the University of East London. Now, we've had a few questions recently in some of our workshops, and I've had an email about this as well, expressing concern about questions of ownership and intellectual property rights when uploading work to Turnitin. Now, I'm not an intellectual property rights lawyer, I ought to say that from the start. However, I can understand why these questions have been raised, because there have been quite a few posts recently from various people expressing concerns about the terms of service of Turnitin itself. When we use Turnitin, we're using a commercial product which is sold to us, so we follow their terms of service. We sign up to their terms of service when we buy that product. And certainly some of the posts have even gone so far as to say, if I can just read this to you, that the gist of those terms of service means that when you upload work to Turnitin, your property is in no reasonable sense your property. That's quite a scary thought, but actually it slightly, I think, overstates the issues. When you go to the Privacy Centre on Turnitin, it states very clearly that Turnitin, I'm going to read this to you directly, does not ever assert or claim copyright ownership of any works submitted to or through our service. Your property is your property. We do not and will not use your intellectual property for any purposes other than to deliver, support and develop our services which are designed to protect and strengthen your copyright. So, when we upload work of students or upload work of our own to Turnitin, we're not signing over the intellectual property rights of that work to Turnitin. However, there is concern about the fact that when students do upload their papers to Turnitin, it is stored within a Turnitin repository for the express purposes of measuring and comparing it to other papers. So, for example, somebody in Norwich submits a paper, and somebody in UEL submits a paper, and there is a match between the two. You'll see that there is a match to something which has been submitted to another institution. So that paper which has been submitted is stored and is being used by Turnitin as part of their profitable industry, as part of their profitable business. At what point do you sign over the right to those papers so that Turnitin can use it for that? Well, some of the critics of Turnitin and their policies point in particular to a section in the terms of service where they say, here it is, any communications or material of any kind ... will be treated as non-confidential and non-proprietary. You grant Turnitin a non-exclusive, royalty-free, perpetual, worldwide, irrevocable license to reproduce, transmit, display, disclose and otherwise use your communications on the site or elsewhere for our business purposes. There it is, that by uploading papers into Turnitin, you grant them to rights to use those papers for their business purposes, except the ... are important here, because if you look at what's been missed out from those emphases, in the parentheses, that this excludes personally identifiable information of students and any papers submitted to the site. And in fact, if you scroll up to the protecting your data section of the terms of service, it says that when a student or educator submits a paper to Turnitin, yes, here it is, it's compared against a vast, secure, proprietary database of licensed source materials. However, each educator, at the discretion of his or her school administrator, can determine whether or not to include student papers in the repository, and whether or not to give students the option to opt out. When you're setting up a Turnitin submission area and you look at the originality options in that Turnitin submission, you'll see that there is an option to opt out of having those papers uploaded to the repository for comparison elsewhere. If you are at all concerned about privacy, about data protection, about intellectual property or any of those things, then do take advantage of that option to sign out of the option to have the papers uploaded to the repository. So if you do have any more questions about intellectual property or about legal issues, then please feel perfectly free not to come to us, because we're just here to tell you how to use the software and what the options are when you're using the software. If you do have more concerns about these issues, do speak to your dean or talk to the HR department's legal sections and find out more information from people who are actually experts in that subject. The main point of this video is to say that the blogs which have been appearing lately, which have been questioning the terms of service for Turnitin, do paint a slightly more negative view of the impact of those terms of service on intellectual property than might necessarily be justified. My name's John. I'm Calc Department here at University of East London, and that's it. Toodle pip.